I'm a narcissist.
Other breaking news. Water. Wet.
God, you're annoying.
She comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
I hate happy endings.
But you don't have to disparage men in the process.
We absolutely wrote a Snow White.
It's not going to be saved by the prince.
In order to be inclusive, you have to completely destroy storylines.
It is a colossal disaster.
I was scared of the original cartoon. It's no longer 1937. It's Hollywood, baby.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hollywood isn't just turning its back on Rachel Zegler, it's practically sprinting in the other direction, stilettos flying. And it all hit the fan the second that brutal Simpsons parody dropped.
She wakes up and now they gotta go confront this frickin' queen. Yeah, they better. How are they gonna take her down?
1 minute, Rachel was Disney's next princess, the fresh-faced star who snagged Spielberg's blessing and Snow White's crown. The next, she's the punchline of the year, and Hollywood's Sympathy, if it ever existed, has officially packed its bags and left the building.
Well, Snow White's got a trick up her sleeve. She reveals that she remembers the names and professions of the people that now work for the queen. Okay.
Sources say the moment Snowwoke, the Reimagining aired, the calls started. The kind of calls where casting directors suddenly revisit their shortlists and PR teams, reassess brand alignments, and if Rachel thought the online reaction was savage, well, the industry's response has been even colder. Because in Hollywood, you're only as lovable as your last headline. And right now, Rachel's headlines are reading like the career equivalent of a 3-alarm fire. It wasn't just that The Simpsons went for her throat with their parody, it's that the parody worked. Too well, a princess droning on about leadership over love, rolling her eyes at fairy tales, lecturing woodland creatures about patriarchal oppression while the prince stands there looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. It wasn't satire. It was a highlight reel of everything fans had already been complaining about for months.
They flopped so hard in Snow White, trying to be brazen and rewrite history and representative of its modern audience, and we all saw how that went.
And Hollywood listened. Studios that once couldn't wait to attach Rachel's name to their next big project suddenly started acting like they didn't have her number. Talent agencies started whispering about unnecessary risks. PR teams pulled up Rachel's press tour clips like they were studying crime scene footage. Even seasoned producers, the ones who usually love a good comeback arc, allegedly started asking each other, is she salvageable? Brutal doesn't even begin to cover it. And as for Sympathy, please, this is Hollywood. Sympathy is for box office winners and award season darlings, not for stars who managed to alienate half their fan base before the movie even hit streaming. Once The Simpsons aired that roast heard round the world, Rachel wasn't just trending, she was a cautionary tale. And inside the glittering machine of showbiz, where perception is everything, there's one cold, glittery truth no one's saying out loud, but everyone's thinking, she's no longer Snow White.
So maybe, if Tangled ever gets picked back up off the cutting room floor, you stick to what Tangled actually is.
She's radioactive. The second that Simpsons episode hit TikTok like a meteor strike, insiders say Rachel Zegler's team went into full-blown emergency mode, and honestly, you can't even blame them. According to sources, the mood inside her camp was something between DEFCON 1 and somebody hide the sharp objects. Rachel herself, allegedly pacing in circles, phone clutched in a death grip, alternating between disbelief and fury, as clips of the parody racked up millions of views faster than you could say, dismantling patriarchal narratives. Reports claim she immediately instructed her team to make calls and make them loud. Disney, Fox, The Simpsons producers, anyone with a button to stop this runaway train. Her demand was crystal clear. Pull the episode, or at least yank the character that was making her the laughingstock of the week. And what did she get for all that panic? A big, resounding, Hollywood-certified no. One insider from Fox reportedly put it bluntly, "The episode's locked. It aired. It's satire. We're not pulling anything." Translation? You're not the first celebrity we've roasted, sweetie, and you definitely won't be the last. This wasn't just a door being closed. It was slammed, double-bolted, and posted with a no refunds, no regrets sign. And just like that, Rachel and her team realized they weren't dealing with a Twitter pile-on they could maybe outlast. They were dealing with a pop culture institution that had no intention of playing nice. From that moment, Rachel's silence wasn't a strategy, it was a symptom. Behind closed doors, there were reportedly frantic discussions about what to do next. Issue a statement? Try to laugh it off? Book a sympathetic podcast tour and tell a heartfelt story about misunderstanding and growth? Every option was thrown on the table.
Studios really need to go back to what they originally did, which was tell your stars to shut up and not say things, because no one is paying to hear your star say offensive things off the screen.
None stuck. Because at a certain point, the only thing worse than being parodied is looking like you can't take the joke. And Rachel, she wasn't ready to laugh. Not even close. Meanwhile, Hollywood was watching, and it wasn't impressed. Agents started muttering about optics nightmares. Studio execs who had been considering her for future projects allegedly hit pause faster than you can refresh a trending page. Because in an industry that runs on perception, it didn't matter if Rachel was talented, it didn't matter if the parody was harsh. What mattered was that she looked fragile under pressure, and fragile doesn't sell tickets. While Rachel was figuring out how to disappear without actually moving to a remote island, the internet. Well, the internet did what it does best. It threw a popcorn party and kept replaying the carnage. TikTok exploded. Twitter, X, but no one's actually calling it that, was basically on fire. YouTube commentary videos popped up faster than apology notes at a bachelor reunion. Everywhere you looked, it was side-by-side edits of Rachel's real interviews mashed against her Simpsons parody, with captions like, "Tell me which one is satire? I'll wait." And honestly, if you squinted, you couldn't tell. The most brutal part. It wasn't even the exaggerations that hurt. It was the accuracy. Rachel's actual sound bites, calling the prince a stalker, rolling her eyes at the idea of a fairy tale ending, practically daring Disney traditionalists to fight her, lined up perfectly with the cartoon version. The parody didn't create a caricature, it just color-corrected what was already there. Fans didn't have to stretch to see it, they just had to hit play. And the silence from Rachel? Oh, it made things 10 times juicier. Because when you say nothing, people start filling in the blanks for you. Was she banned from speaking? Was Disney muzzling her with a PR gag order? Or, and this was the messiest theory, was she just too embarrassed to even try clapping back? Either way, every hour without a response felt like another nail hammered into the narrative. Rachel Zegler had lost the room, and The Simpsons had passed around the smoking mic. Meanwhile, the memes were getting mean. Edits showed Rachel's cartoon meltdown next to real interviews where she lectured journalists about modern leadership.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
One viral TikTok cut between her shouting about feminism in Snowwoke and real Rachel saying it's no longer 1937 in the Snow White press tour. The comment sections? Absolutely savage. People weren't just criticizing, they were exhausted. They weren't mad, they were done. And that, in Hollywood, is so much worse than a scandal. Because once the audience moves from anger to apathy, that's when the lights start dimming. And it gets real quiet, real fast. While Rachel was busy ghosting the entire internet, Disney was basically sprinting around backstage with a fire extinguisher, labeled "Please don't panic." And the funniest part? They didn't even pretend they weren't panicking. They just quietly, surgically started erasing her from the narrative, like a magician trying to yank a tablecloth off a table without knocking over the wine glasses. Subtle, strategic, and, if you looked closely, kind of hilarious. First, her face started vanishing from the new Snow White promos. Like, one day you'd see Rachel smiling in a behind-the-scenes clip, and the next day, poof, it was just Gal Gadot's evil queen looking fabulous while ominous orchestra music played. Then came the Instagram posts. The official Disney account stopped tagging her, new trailers magically forgot to feature her speaking lines, press junkets, re-edited, media invites, pulled, red carpet appearances, canceled due to scheduling conflicts. And we all know what that means. Scheduling conflict, we scheduled you to stay far, far away. Behind the scenes, insiders say Disney didn't even bother putting up a fight. They weren't plotting a grand Rachel redemption arc. They weren't trying to spin the Simpsons roast. No heartfelt op-eds, no tearful interviews, just distance. Like your friend who saw too much at your birthday party and now pretends they're taking a break from social media. Silent, awkward, damning. And the craziest part? According to multiple sources, Disney owns The Simpsons now, which means that devastating, career-torpedoing episode aired under their own umbrella, on their own watch. And if you think anyone at the top scrambled to pull it afterward, not a chance. They let it fly, which basically screamed, "We're not mad, we're just moving on." It wasn't personal, cold, corporate, popcorn-worthy business. Because in Hollywood, the ultimate rejection isn't a public firing. It's when the people who used to bet on you suddenly stop mentioning your name at all. And Rachel, she was learning that lesson in real time, the worst way possible. While Disney was busy backing away with the stealth of a cat caught knocking over a glass, Hollywood at large was already 2 steps ahead. If Disney's quiet fade out was the warning shot, Hollywood's reaction was the full evacuation drill. Executives, agents, producers, you could practically hear the sound of Zegler's name being deleted from group chats across Los Angeles. The message was clear: no sympathy, no second chances. Not this time. Inside agencies, her situation became an actual case study. I'm not even exaggerating. PR firms reportedly slapped together emergency workshops with titles like "When Authenticity Becomes Arrogance, Avoiding the Zegler Effect." Imagine your worst press day becoming a literal PowerPoint slide, complete with bullet points like "Stay humble" and "Don't roast the classics that made your career possible." Somewhere, a media trainer got a bonus just for writing. That deck, casting directors, they got the memo too, fast. One Netflix producer allegedly said during a meeting, "Circle back in a few years when the internet forgives her." Not if, when. And if that wasn't blunt enough, another insider from a rival studio supposedly quipped, "We're looking for a Snow White, not a snow fight." Brutal? Yes. Fair? Depends who you ask. The scariest part for Rachel was that it wasn't just fans who were tired. It was the industry itself. The very people who once championed her were now side-eyeing her like she was a ticking PR bomb. Not because she got caught in some scandal, not because she lost her talent, but because she made herself exhausting. And in Hollywood, where attention spans are shorter than a TikTok, being exhausting is the kiss of death. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even backlash anymore. It was something worse. Boredom. No one wanted to deal with the mess. No one wanted to answer questions about the Snow White situation. No one wanted to risk signing a star whose biggest headline might be another meme instead of another hit. Quietly, coldly, Rachel Zegler was being iced out of the very machine that once fast-tracked her to fame, because in an industry that forgives scandals, but never forgives being bad for business, Rachel wasn't just a risk anymore. She was the red flag waving right at the front of the parade.
She continued celebrating herself by posting that she's in the #1 movie in the world, which is a remarkable thing to post when you are the laughingstock of an entire industry. This is what narcissism looks like. Narcissism for 200.
If you thought the Hollywood freeze-out was bad, just wait until you hear what the internet cooked up next. Because while studios were carefully muting Rachel's name like a bad word on Slack, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter, sorry X, were throwing a full-blown meme bonanza. And Rachel Zegler was the main course, and not in a gourmet Michelin star way. In a backyard BBQ, someone dropped the hot dogs in the dirt way. First came the Simpsons edits. Oh, the edits. Every second of that Snowwoke parody was chopped, looped, remixed, and glued next to Rachel's real-life interviews. The most brutal part? You couldn't tell where reality ended and satire began. 1 second, it's cartoon Rachel proclaiming she doesn't need love, she needs leadership. The next, it's actual Rachel, saying almost the exact same thing in an interview. Side by side, pixel for pixel. Win for The Simpsons, loss for Rachel. TikTok trends exploded overnight. The parody's most savage line, "I'm not here to be loved, I'm here to lead," got dubbed the final boss of girl bossing. Users stitched it onto everything from failed leadership videos to clips of toddlers bossing around their parents. And somehow, Rachel's real quotes became the unofficial soundtrack of internet sarcasm. It wasn't just mockery, it was brand destruction, gift-wrapped and delivered with a side of popcorn. YouTube didn't hold back either. Commentary channels pounced like kids on a broken piñata. Titles like, "The Simpsons just did what Disney wouldn't," and "Rachel Zegler, roasted beyond recognition," racked up millions of views. Some creators even threw in fake Oscar montages, awarding Rachel a Razzie while Krusty the Clown applauded with the slow, sarcastic sadness of a man who's seen too much. And honestly, it felt weirdly accurate. But the ugliest part? An old, already debunked hoax about Rachel got revived in the chaos. An AI-generated fake OnlyFans account falsely linked to her started trending again. It wasn't real, it wasn't new, but facts didn't matter anymore. In the court of internet opinion, once a rumor is juicy enough, it doesn't have to be true. It just has to be believable. And right now, for too many people, anything attached to Rachel's name automatically felt messy. Because at this point, it wasn't about what Rachel said or didn't say anymore. It was about what she symbolized. To frustrated fans, she wasn't just one actress who misspoke, she was the face of Hollywood arrogance, the face of reimaginings nobody asked for, the poster child for what happens when you lecture your audience instead of enchanting them. And Sympathy? That train left the station at full speed, with nobody waving goodbye. While Rachel Zegler was practically vanishing from Hollywood's promo materials, another phenomenon was quietly taking over, behind the scenes. A phrase started floating through studio meetings, agency conference calls, and PR war rooms. It wasn't a meme yet. It wasn't trending. It was scarier than that.
But the lead actresses, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, are making it very, very difficult for me to believe that there is anything redeeming about this project whatsoever.
It was industry code. 3 little words. Don't do a Zegler. It started as a whisper, a chuckle at first. Don't Zegler it. A talent agent reportedly told a young actress prepping for a fantasy franchise role. Translation: don't get too online, don't bite the hand that's casting you. And for the love of Mickey Mouse, don't lecture the fanbase about how dumb their childhood dreams were. Within weeks, it became unofficial policy. PR consultants updated training manuals, social media strategists added it to client prep sheets. Don't do a Zegler meant be seen. Be likable, be boring if you have to. Because studios weren't just scared of backlash, they were traumatized by how fast it could spiral when a rising star didn't read the room. One Netflix producer was even overheard telling a showrunner, "She's a case study now, a whole cautionary tale wrapped in TikTok stitches." Ouch, but not wrong. The message was clear. Hollywood wasn't just turning on Rachel Zegler. They were building a safety perimeter around future stars, so no one else crashed and burned this spectacularly. If you're cast in a beloved property, smile, wave, talk about how much you loved the original VHS tape. Don't try to reinvent the magic on camera before the movie even hits theaters. And absolutely positively, no girl boss TED Talks during junket interviews. The ripple effect hit fast. Young actors, the ones coming up now, are getting coached harder than ever. Stay in character isn't just for the movie anymore, it's for the marketing campaign too. Studios are even allegedly filtering casting decisions through risk assessment lenses. How social media savvy is this actor? How controllable is the narrative? Do they know how to smile and nod without giving a dissertation on systemic storytelling tropes? It sounds paranoid. It sounds unfair. But after the Zegler fallout, it's real. Because no studio, no streaming. Giant, no billion-dollar franchise wants their next press tour hijacked by viral TikToks clowning their lead actor's disdain for the source material. And the saddest part? Rachel Zegler didn't even have to be the villain. She didn't have to be perfect, or plastic, or fake. All she had to do was show a little wonder, a little love for the story she was stepping into. Instead, she stepped into the story swinging, and Hollywood took notes on every misstep like it was a masterclass in what not to do. The result? A whole generation of young talent is now being trained not just how to act, but how not to Zegler. If there was any hope that Rachel Zegler could ride out the Simpsons fallout quietly, it evaporated the moment the internet realized. She wasn't saying anything. No heartfelt apology, no tongue-in-cheek meme repost, not even a cryptic Instagram story about growing through challenges. Just silence. Total, eerie, headline-generating silence. And in Hollywood, silence isn't golden. It's deadly. Because the moment you stop telling your story, the internet writes it for you.
I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White. And
it writes fast. Within days of the Simpsons episode airing, the Rachel Zegler narrative wasn't just about a bad press tour anymore. It was about arrogance, detachment, a full-blown fall from grace storyline with TikTok edits and sad piano music included. One viral post even compared her PR silence to watching a Wi-Fi signal fade into oblivion. Brutal, but somehow accurate. Meanwhile, fan channels, gossip pages, and even major entertainment outlets ran wild with the vacuum she left behind. Was she hiding out? Was Disney gagging her? Was she plotting a comeback? Everyone had a theory. No one had facts. And when people don't have facts, they fill in the blanks. Insiders claim Rachel's team debated about a soft re-entry into the conversation. Maybe a cute post with a dog, maybe a nostalgic pic of herself in a princess costume at age 5. Something to humanize her again. Something to crack the icy wall that had gone up around her. But allegedly, Rachel wasn't interested. She didn't want to feed the trolls. She didn't want to reward negativity. which, noble intentions aside, only made it worse. Because the longer she stayed silent, the louder the narrative grew. The idea that she didn't care about the backlash, that she thought she was above it, that she believed the audience, not her, needed to change. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. In the PR game, perception is the only currency that spends. And by the time Rachel finally did peek back onto social media, weeks later, in the form of a bland promotional retweet, the internet had moved on. Not just from the controversy, but from her. The sympathy window had slammed shut. People weren't mad anymore. They were bored. They had new memes, new drama, new stars to root for. The story of Rachel Zegler wasn't a burning scandal. It wasn't a boycott. It wasn't even outrage anymore. It was a shrug, a cautionary meme, a punchline in Hollywood's group chats. And that's the kind of PR iceberg that no Disney ship, no matter how unsinkable it thinks it is, can steer around. Hollywood doesn't do mercy, especially not when the winds change. And for Rachel Zegler, the cold front sweeping through the industry wasn't just brisk, it was Arctic. The shift wasn't loud. There were no official blacklists, no public shaming. Just a quiet, unmistakable freeze. Casting directors stopped returning calls. Executives started using her name in conversations that sounded a lot like warnings. Agents whispered the phrase, "Nobody wants attached to their client." Brand liability. According to insiders, some projects where Rachel's name had been floated started getting reevaluated. Not because she couldn't act, not because she couldn't sing, but because, as one producer allegedly said behind closed doors, she brings the wrong energy into the room now. That's Hollywood code for. She's not the fantasy anymore, she's the footnote. And nobody's signing up for that when there are 10 other bright-eyed starlets ready to smile for the camera and the internet. Even directors who once gushed about her talent have reportedly started adding asterisks when her name comes up. Brilliant voice, but maybe a little too online. Phenomenal presence. Just needs media training. Incredible talent. Not right for this kind of press cycle. Translation. She's amazing. She's gifted. And she's a headache. No one has the budget or the patience for right now. And here's where it gets even frostier. The silence isn't just coming from studios. It's coming from peers, other actors, people who used to comment heart emojis under her posts. The same colleagues who cheered her during West Side Story's awards run, suddenly nowhere to be found. No public support, no subtle hang in there tweets. Nothing but the deafening absence that Hollywood reserves for the unofficially untouchable. Insiders say PR teams are now using Rachel's arc as a teaching moment during crisis management training. Some firms even coined a new term internally, pulling a Zegler, which allegedly refers to losing public favor by mishandling legacy storytelling roles with visible contempt. Ouch. Imagine becoming an entire section of the What Not to Do PowerPoint deck at CA and WME. The harsh truth, Rachel wasn't blacklisted. She wasn't canceled. She just became complicated. And in an industry addicted to easy wins and viral victories, complicated might as well be career quicksand. Because when Hollywood decides it's done trying to fix your narrative, it doesn't tell you. It just stops calling. So here we are, one viral episode, one cultural firestorm, and one young actress who now feels like she's standing at the edge of her own career cliff, heels sinking, spotlight fading, and no script in hand. Rachel Zegler isn't out of Hollywood, she isn't canceled, but she's something far trickier. She's stalled, frozen in a moment that feels less like a setback and more like a slow, public unraveling. And the biggest question still hanging in the air, can she rewrite her story, or will this be the chapter the industry and the audience remembers her by? Because make no mistake, the parody is permanent. The memes are eternal. And the perception, the idea that Rachel Zegler became the very thing she mocked, has planted itself deep in the cultural soil. Even if she lands another major role, even if she crushes her next performance, even if she somehow sidesteps the next storm, this shadow will linger, and Hollywood doesn't wait for you to catch up. It moves on, fast. But, and it's a big but, Hollywood also loves a comeback, maybe even more than it loves a downfall. The question is whether Rachel will fight for hers. Not with a defensive tweet, not with a carefully manicured Instagram comeback tour, but with something raw, human, honest, the kind of thing that reminds people why they loved her in the first place. Because audiences can forgive almost anything if they feel like you. Get it. If you own the missteps, if you acknowledge the stumbles, if you stop hiding and start healing out loud. Right now, though, Rachel's still silent. still waiting for the world to move on, hoping maybe the next celebrity implosion will take the heat off her. But the longer she waits, the more this version of her, the meme, the parody, the girl boss meltdown, cements itself as the only one people remember. And that's not just a career killer, that's a legacy thief. Because at her best, Rachel Zegler was magic. She had the kind of voice, the kind of spark, that made you believe for a second that Hollywood could still find new fairy tales. She could still find her way back there. But the next move has to be hers. Not her PR team's, not Disney's, not some agency-approved reboot. Hers. And it has to start with something stronger than silence. So what do you think? Is there still time for Rachel Zegler to turn this around? Or has Hollywood already quietly moved on without her? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're dying to know if you still believe there's a second act waiting for her. And if you love deep dives that pull the curtain back on Hollywood's wildest moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because the next story, let's just say, you're not ready for the drama coming next.